All right, welcome back to our daily read aloud, The Wild Robot. So, yesterday, Bright Bill started talking to all the geese about winter. Now, what's the problem here with Bright Bill needing to migrate? Hayden?
He has to move, away from his mom and stuff.
Yes.
It'll be hard.
Yeah, so Roz obviously can't fly. She cannot go migrate with the geese. But she knows her son has to follow his instincts, and he has to be a goose. So, Roz is saying, don't worry, it'll be fine. How bad could winter be? Because Bright Bill's worried about her being home for winter. Chapter 53 is called The Migration. It was the night before the migration, and Bright Bill was sleeping fitfully. Roz watched him toss and turn until he finally crawled up into her arms. And she rocked him to sleep, just like the old days. Early the next morning, Bright Bill waddled outside and looked at the pond. All right, hold on, sorry everyone. Sorry about that. We were being very noisy. All right, I'll start over because I could not focus at that whole first paragraph. The migration. It was the night before the migration, and Bright Bill was sleeping fitfully. Roz watched him toss and turn until he finally crawled up into her arms, and she rocked him to sleep, just like the old days. Early the next morning, Bright Bill waddled outside and looked at the pond. The water was perfectly still. A few lazy clouds drifted above. Geese were already gathering by the beach. And then Tiny Claws scampered down from the treetops. So, today's the day, huh? Said Chit Chat, perched on a branch. You're going to see so many new things and meet so many new animals. And if there are any squirrels at your wintering grounds, please tell them that Chit Chat says hello. Today is the day, said Bright Bill, and the flock will be leaving soon. Are you excited or nervous or scared? I'm all of those things. The squirrel whispered. Well, don't worry about your mother. I'll look after her so you'll know she'll be perfectly fine. Bright Bill smiled. I'm afraid it's time to go, said Roz as she stepped out of the nest. Okay, Mama, said the gosling. See you in the spring, Chit Chat. Have a nice migration, Bright Bill, the squirrel scampering back into the treetops. Come home with lots of exciting stories, but not too exciting because I don't want anything scary to happen to you. Goodbye. The geese were honking with excitement and hustling around as they made their final preparations. Several of the fathers huddled together, discussing their flight plans, while the mothers took a head count. There you are, Bright Bill, Loudwing honked from the middle of the crowd. We're just about to begin. May I have your attention, please, said the biggest goose. As most of you know, my name is Longneck, and I'll be leading this year's migration. I'm asking everyone to please join your families for takeoff. Once we're all airborne, each family will take its position in our V formation, and we'll start the first leg of our journey. Are there any questions? I have a question, came a booming voice. My son will not have any family with him. Where does he fit into the formation? Everyone turned to Longneck. He can fly with me, said the big goose. I hear Bright Bill is a very clever flyer. I could use his help at the point. A moment later, the geese began flapping and honking and making their way into the air. A cloud of feathers floated down around the robot and her son. You are not a gosling anymore, said Roz. I am proud of the fine young goose you have become. Bright Bill fluttered up to his mother's shoulder. Thanks, Mama. The young goose wiped his eyes. Is this where we say goodbye? This is where we say goodbye for now. Spring will be here soon and we will be together again. I'm going to miss you, said Bright Bill as he nuzzled his mother. I'm going to miss you too, said Roz as she nuzzled her son. The goose took a deep breath. Then he shook his tail feathers, flapped his wings, and joined the flock. At first, the geese flew in a disorganized jumble, but each goose slowly drifted into position until the flock formed a wobbly V. At the lead was Longneck, and behind his left wing was Bright Bill. They circled in the sky until the V pointed south, and then the geese began their long migration. Roz climbed to the top of a tree and watched as the flock slowly faded into the horizon. All right, in class, I'll show you in a minute. Stay quiet. So not much happening. You can just see her silhouette watching the geese as they fly off. So as a robot, as a person, I'm feeling very emotional right now. I'm sure a lot of you are too. Why is this an emotional situation? Cadence?
Because Bright Bill has been with her.
Yeah. Like you can imagine if I had to leave someone for that long when I was little and come back, it would make me really kind of scared and nervous, and I'd miss my mom and all those feelings. How much do you think Roz is feeling? Because remember, she is a robot. Angie, what do you think?
Maybe she's not feeling it, but maybe be on maybe the detail on her face.
Okay, so maybe she can still show some of the expression she might be. It's hard to say feeling, but, she's going to miss her son, right? She can miss people, kind of. Hayden?
It's like your child leaving off to college and stuff.
Mm-hmm. It would feel like that to her. Yep.
Something like sadness?
Something like sadness, yeah. We've been saying that a lot, right? All right, our next chapter is called The Winter. The island was quiet. The migratory birds had all left, the hibernators were asleep, and everyone else had begun their simple winter routines. Everyone but Roz. Now that she was alone, our robot didn't know what to do with herself. She stood in her gray garden and watched a sheet of ice slowly form on the pond. Sometimes she could hear her good friends the beavers going about their business beneath the ice, and she wondered when she would see them. Roz stood there until snowflakes started drifting down from the sky. The flakes swirled in the breeze and slowly piled up on the ground and on the trees and on the robot. So she crouched into the nest, slid the stone door behind her, and sat in darkness. Okay. I want everyone to just turn your brain on. Think about that a minute. Just think about that a minute. Chloe?
I think she turned it off.
All right. Why, if she's sitting in the darkness, Chloe, why do you think she might power off? That's a good prediction.
Because, like, for example, humans gonna go sleep, and then when they're slowly going to go to bed, their eyes, like, they're darkest.
Okay. So it's kind of like a hibernation thing. Madeline, what are you thinking?
Because she has no sun.
Oh. Does she have to have sun hit that panel for her?
Somehow.
So, first thing I was thinking when she rolled that stone and she's sitting in the dark, uh-oh. I don't know. Let's keep reading. All right. So, she slid the stone door behind her and sat in darkness. Hours and days and weeks went by without the robot moving. She had no need to move. She felt perfectly safe in the nest. And so in her own way, the robot hibernated. Roz's body relaxed. Her quiet whirring slowly stopped. Her eyes faded to black. She could probably have spent centuries like that, hibernating in total darkness. But the robot's hibernation was suddenly interrupted when a shaft of sunlight fell upon her face and carried energy back to her empty battery. Roz's body tensed. Her quiet whirring slowly started. Her eyes began to glow. "Hello, I am Rozum Unit 7134, but you may call me Roz," the robot said automatically. When all her systems were up and running again, Roz noticed that she was surrounded by broken branches and piles of snow. The roof of the nest had caved in, and the lodge was now flooded with sunlight. Roz felt more energized with each passing minute. But she also felt cold. Her joints felt stiff and brittle, and her thinking was slow. So she got up, cleared a spot on the floor, and made a fire. The snow inside the nest began to melt, and the robot's sensors began to thaw. And when she was ready, she climbed out through the hole in the roof and into a bright, foreign landscape. The world Roz had known was now covered in a thick layer of snow. Tree limbs bent to the ground under heavy sleeves. The dark pond was now pure white. The only sounds were Roz's own crunching footsteps. Faint wisps of steam curled up from the robot's body as she trudged through the forest. Roz plunged a hand into a lump of snow and pulled up a long stick. She snapped it in half and flung both pieces back to the nest. She took a few more steps and picked up a fallen tree. She hacked it into smaller pieces and flung them back as well. Then she reached down to another snowy shape. But what she pulled up was not a piece of wood. It was Dart the Weasel. He was frozen solid. Roz stared at his stiff body for a moment, then decided it was best to leave the poor thing where he was. As the robot continued gathering wood, she found more victims of the cold. A frozen mouse, a frozen bird, a frozen deer. Had all the island animals frozen to death? No, not all. There were a few fresh tracks in the snow. As we know, the wilderness is filled with beauty, but it's also filled with ugliness. And that winter was ugly. What does that mean? Not literally ugly. What does that mean? Cadence? Yeah, sad stuff. We can describe sad things or mean things as ugly. Hayden?
Like when someone's sad, they say they're an ugly crier. It's weird.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody in my family is like that. So.
Well, I know when I was a little girl, if I had too much emotion, like, kind of throwing a fit, my mom would tell me not to act ugly. And she wasn't telling me I looked ugly. You can act in a way that's no one wants, right? You're looking silly. You're making a fool of yourself. You're looking ugly, okay? So, it was an ugly winter. A devastating cold front had swept down from the north and brought dangerous temperatures and huge amounts of snow. Kind of like our winter, right? We kind of had a tough winter. The animals had prepared for winter, but nothing could have prepared the weaker ones for those long nights when the temperature plummeted and the wind whipped over the island. Roz returned to the nest where the fire had melted the interior slow to a muddy soup. She took a minute to warm her body by the flames, and then she began the repairs. She patched up the hole in the dome with the lattice work of branches before adding a layer of mud and leaves, and soon the repairs were complete. But another snowfall might cave in the nest all over again, so Roz decided to keep a fire going day and night to prevent snow from building up on the roof. The robot brought in load after load of firewood, and each time she went outside, she was reminded of the frozen weasel and the mouse and bird and deer. How many other frozen animals were hidden beneath the snow? Before going in for the night, she called out to whoever was listening, "Animals of the island, you do not have to freeze. Join me in my lodge where it is safe and warm." So, our last chapter today, chapter 55, The Lodgers. Firelight spilled out from the nest and into the cold, blustery night. Roz sat inside and listened to the wind and to the soft pops and crackles of burning wood. And then, the robot's keen hearing picked up another sound. Tiny footsteps crunching through the snow. "Roz, I'm freezing. Can I join you by the fireplace, please?" said a weak voice. Into the light crawled Chit-Chat. The squirrel was shivering, and clumps of ice stuck to her fur. When she finally felt the heat of the fire, she collapsed. Roz picked her up off the floor, gently placed her on a warm stone, and let her sleep. An hour later, there were more footsteps, and a family of hares shuffled into the nest. They huddled together in a corner without saying a word. Pinktail the possum was the next to arrive. "Good evening," she mumbled, trying to act cheerful. "It certainly has been chilly." Swooper the owl hobbled in, followed by some chickadees and a magpie. Fink knew a good thing when he saw it, and the fox lay down right by the fire. Then came Dig Down the groundhog. The fuzzy bandits carried in an old turtle named Crag, who was in the worst shape of all. Creatures who should have been hibernating deep underground had been roused by that vicious weather. Only the healthiest animals with the warmest homes were safe. More and more weary animals appeared, and slowly the lodge filled up. This was the first time many of the lodgers had seen fire, and they gazed at it with a mixture of fear and hope. They could feel the fire's destructive power, but they could also feel its healing power as it warmed their bones. The lodgers seemed to push forward, eager to feel more warmth, and then pull back, afraid of feeling too much. It was important that the lodgers understood fire, so Roz showed them how to build one. She showed the smaller animals how to arrange the kindling, and she showed the bigger animals how to arrange the logs. Bumpkin, Lumpkin, and Rumpkin struck the firestones together, and everyone cheered when they finally managed a spark. As Roz looked around, she saw moles curling up beside an owl. No, that's not normal, right? Owls eat moles. A mouse snuggling between two weasels. Hares nestling against a badger. Never before had the robot seen prey and predators so close and peaceful. But how long could the peace possibly last? "I propose a truce," said Roz, "like the dawn truce. Everyone must agree not to hunt or harm one another while in my lodge." "Very well," said Swooper, after consulting his carnivorous friends. "We hunters will control ourselves." "Then it is settled," said Roz. "My home is a safe place for all." One by one, the lodgers each fell into a deep sleep. Even the nocturnal creatures, usually wide awake at that hour, gave in to the coziness of the nest. The robot stood out of the way and quietly tended to the fire as her guests slept through the night. Only when daylight was streaming in through the door did the lodgers finally begin to stir. "You are all welcome to stay here as long as you like," said the robot as the animals rubbed sleep from their eyes. "My home is your home." "Thanks a lot, Roz." Fink carefully stepped over a hare and a woodpecker on his way to the door. "I don't think I would have survived another night on my own. It's just too bad we can't cram a few more creatures in here." And the fox slipped outside. The robot looked down at the fur and feathers that now carpeted the floor. The nest had been completely full that night. If any more animals showed up, they'd be left out in the cold. But Roz was not about to let that happen. All right, does anyone have a prediction as to what she might do? Eric?
She might try to build an extension.
Okay, so add on, make her lodge bigger.
And
Liam?
Maybe go out and try to find some more animals.
Okay, so bring them over. Do you think she'd make more space for them? Okay, Cadence?
She's gonna go out and let them have her house.
Okay, so maybe she doesn't even need to be in there anymore. Zoe?
She's gonna make a little animal hotel.
Oh, like a hotel? Hayden?
She's gonna make her lodge bigger, or she's gonna make
Pardon the interruption. I have a couple of group photos that I need to take for the yearbook. So
all right, I'll see you guys later.
my spelling